Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. We are all very similar. We all have birth, we all have growth, and we all have learning. We all attain knowledge, and we all look for satisfaction in this world. We look for peace, we look for understanding, we look for a way to do away with our difficulties, to do away with sadness, to do away with all the absurd situations that often surround us that we don't seem to have any solutions for. We need to know what is it that we really need. We need to know what is reality. What is the reality that we need? Where does man find his profit, and where does man find his loss? There is a God, and it begins with understanding that there is a God. And in order to escape from all of the divergence that exists within the world, all of the separation that exists within the world, all the differences that exist within the world, all the separations that exist within the world, all the evil that exists within the world, all the difficulties each of us encounter. We have to focus on understanding this God. It is through God that we will find truth, because God is truth. Nothing else is truth. Only God is truth. But in order to understand that truth, we have to understand that God. Not only do we have to understand him, we have to apply that understanding, and it has to become real within us. We need to know that God is formless, and we have to have some concept of what that means. We have to know that God has no religion, and we have to have some concept of what that means. We have to know that God has no progeny. We have to have some concept of what that means. We need to know that he has no selfishness, that he is love and compassion and mercy. And he is love and compassion and mercy in an endless way. And we have to know that he, in his love and compassion and mercy, allows us, his creation, to know love and compassion and mercy. So in his compassion, he gives us of himself, and he makes himself available to us to share in what it is that he has. And no matter how much he gives, no matter how much we take of him, he is not in any way lessened. He is not in any way diminished. He is not in any way made less. He has created all that we see. However, man is his ultimate creation, and man is different than the rest of creation in that man has more levels of consciousness than the rest of creation has. Animals have 3 levels of consciousness. Man has 7 levels of consciousness: sense awareness, intellect, judgment, wisdom, divine, and divine luminous wisdom. Wisdom takes us to another realm of understanding. Before we get to wisdom, we are caught within the same parameters that animals are caught in. An animal eats to live. An animal spends its time making itself as comfortable as possible and fulfilling its basic desires, its basic needs. And man, prior to entering into the realm of wisdom, does the same thing. Man lives a quiet life of attempting to satisfy his needs. And this, for many people, is difficult. They have trouble satisfying their basic needs. There are entire countries that are in famines. There are entire sections of cities that have homeless people who can't seem to be able to get it together well enough to be able to find shelter and have to live in the streets. They have not been able to cope with this world. Now, there are many people who have homes who are also not able to cope with this world. Outward appearances don't necessarily represent what is going on inside. So, what is it that man needs? What is it that he has to have the ability to comprehend in order to become at peace, to become tranquil, to become content? Man must learn to transcend. And this word transcend is a difficult word to understand unless you understand it. We can define transcend, but that doesn't mean that it means anything to us. For instance, I could say you need to transcend fear, but as long as you are in a state of fear, you haven't transcended fear and you feel it very strongly. You can transcend desire, but as long as you haven't transcended desire, it means nothing. You can transcend your worldly needs. Well, here's the point. In order to find true peace, you have to become godly. In order to find true compassion, you have to become godly. In order to find true love, you have to become godly. In order to have true justice, you have to become godly. But to become godly, you have to transcend your animal self. You have to transcend the inclination of the animal self, which is the inclination to provide for the self, the inclination to be selfish, the inclination to supply your own needs and no one else's needs, to think about what it is that you need, but not to think about what it is that everyone else needs. Empathy doesn't always exist at the animal level. You'll see examples of empathy at the animal level, but it's also rare. Animals essentially look out for themselves. And at our base, we are an animal creation. But in our reality, We are much more than an animal creation. We are an animal shell with wisdom within us. In order to be able to understand unity, it begins with God is one. His creation is one. All man is one. And there is a true unity that underlies everything. But that unity can't be seen through the eyes of a lion. It can't be seen through the eyes of a tiger. It can't be seen through the eyes of an elephant. It can't be seen through animal eyes. Animal eyes are incapable of understanding unity because animal eyes are tied into the eye, tied into an egocentric self. Watch the world and watch the politicians in the world. These are men who are supposed to be there on behalf of the rest of humanity, making countries viable so that people can exist in a unified fashion where each of them gets the best that they can for each other. Yet, a close examination of most politicians shows that their inclination is self-preservation, and their inclination is to make for themselves. How many politicians become poorer after they were politicians? How many politicians don't become wealthy after they take on the mantle of government service? But we need to understand this, and we need to understand that inclination. We don't need to get involved in the nitty gritty of it or the everyday politics of it, because what we have to do is we have to transcend it. If we are going to become godlike, if we are going to enter into the realm of peace, which is one of the names of God, if we're going into enter into the realm of compassion, which is a name of God, if we're going to enter into the realm of mercy, which is a name of God, we have to understand the meanings of these names of God, and we have to be able to bring them into action, not just into speech. We have to go beyond speech into reality. We have to go beyond speech into hak, which is God's reality. God's reality is his qualities. God's reality is his compassion for all things. God's reality is his love for all things. God has no jealousy. God has none of the qualities that are known as satanic. God has no vengeance. God has no hatred. God has no anger. God does not get affected by the acts of man. God does not react to that which is meant to somehow disbelieve in him. God is a great power who works on behalf of all, protects all, and does not look for any kind of reward. When and how can we enter into a state unto that? When and how can we become among those who do what needs to be done in this world without looking for reward in this world? When can we become true servants to the rest of humanity as God is a servant to humanity? God is constantly giving to humanity. If God, for an instant, did not maintain and sustain and protect this world would disappear. This world exists because of his constant maintenance of it, because of his constant protection of it, because of its because of his constant care for his creation. He created everything. He created even Satan. But because he created Satan does not mean that he has Satan's qualities. He is above and beyond those qualities. And we need to learn how to be above and beyond those qualities. And this is called transcendence. Transcendence means that no matter what is going on around you, your focus is still, your focus is constant, and your intention is to be with and know God. And all of the distractions that the world brings are not going to distract you. So we need to become beings who are not distractible. We need to become beings that are not influenced by all the pulls and pushes of the world. We are subject to all of these energies if we allow ourselves to be subject to all of these energies. And unless we actively try to keep ourselves from being affected by these energies, we will become subject to these energies. And these energies are constantly all around us. There are the energies of man who has not transcended, who is constantly trying to gain the upper hand. And we are constantly interacting with these people. But the question is, can we interact in a way that their intentions don't intermingle with our intentions, that their desires don't intermingle with our desires, that we can stay pure, that we can stay clean, and that we can stay above the fray. The fray is constantly going on. The crescendo of the fray is constantly getting louder and louder and louder. And with all of the media and that we have in this world now, where we are conscious of almost every difficulty that's going on in every part of the world, and it's always blasted at us full force, it becomes very difficult to stay above the fray. People begin to pick sides. And as soon as you begin to pick sides, you are in the midst of the difficulty. You are in the midst of the fray. You are in the midst of the differences. You are in the midst of the abhorrence that occurs between man. Hatred becomes common among mankind. And when hatred enters into the bloodstream over generations and generations of continuous behavior that goes in the same direction, man becomes a slave to those emotions. Man becomes a slave to those characteristics. Man becomes a slave to the intentions of his parents. Man becomes a slave to the intentions of his so-called race. And man becomes incapable of transcending his race, transcending his color, transcending his religion. God has no color. God has no race. God has no religion. Yet we have all of these things. Why? do we have all of these things? Why do we hold on to all of these things? Holding on to all of these things stops us from entering into a state of unity. So as long as we have these things that are capable of being designated as different within the world, we will be separate from each other. As long as we give credence to these things that we call differences within the world, unity will not be found. We have to enter into a phase, which is the fourth level of consciousness called judgment, where we recognize that our lives up till now have been lives that have been engulfed by differences, that have been lives that have been engulfed by separations. And we have made our life these separations, believing that there is truth in these separations. Truth is one. God is one. Man is one. But as long as we see differences, this one cannot exist. And if we continue to see differences, we'll continue to see separations. Satan has read all the books. Satan can recite all the scriptures. Satan has an enormous amount of knowledge, but there's one thing he doesn't have, and that is he doesn't have truth. He conjures out of everything that he knows disruption. He conjures out of everything he knows separations and differences. He conjures out of everything he knows arrogance. And arrogance separates you each from the other. Love brings us together. Arrogance separates us. At the core of Satan's hold on man is arrogance. You are better than they are. You are more than they are. You know better than they are. You have the capability that they don't have. As long as that kind of thought pattern prevails within us, as long as the whisperer whispers those thoughts into our ears and we buy into that, then we live in a world of self-centered, egocentric illusion that guides us to all the wrong places for all the wrong reasons and leads to our demise, leads to our breakdown, leads to sadness, leads to destruction, leads to hell. To escape, we have to be able to get over everything that is petty. To escape, we have to get over all of the worldly influences and come under the influence of God and the godly qualities. There is no other way. You can't conquer the world. No matter how hard you try, you can't conquer the world. The world is full in its history of men who've tried to conquer all of it. They've all failed. One after the other, they failed. It doesn't stop them from trying, but they all fail. And then they come along again and they try the same things. I used to have a trainer who was from Russia. He came over when his gym was confiscated by the oligarchies in Russia, and he is very much aware of the difficulties of communism and how it doesn't do people any good. He has a stepdaughter now, and His stepdaughter considers herself very far left and sees unity as going in the way of communism. And he explains to her, he tells me, that all of these communist countries have become dictatorships and abusive to their own people. And her response to him is, they haven't done it right. So here we are with one of the definitions of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again, thinking it's going to turn out different somehow. We need to understand that there are not worldly solutions to the worldly problems. There are only godly solutions to the worldly problems. In other words, war is not going to bring an end to war. Conflict is not going to bring an end to conflict. Disruption is not going to bring an end to disruption. Anger is not going to bring an end to anger. Hatred is not going to bring an end to hatred. Vengeance is not going to bring an end to vengeance. Retribution is not going to bring an end to retribution. The only things that are going to end the difficulties in the world are the godly qualities and man transcending vengeance, transcending hatred, transcending arrogance, transcending treachery, transcending theft, transcending differences, transcending separations, transcending color, transcending race, transcending religion, and understanding the nature of one, understanding the all-encompassing unity that exists within one, and not allowing all of the different energies in the world to somehow do away with our holding on, being empathetic to that understanding of unity. This isn't easy to do. And that's why there are so few people with wisdom in the world. Wisdom is transcendence. Wisdom is understanding unity. Wisdom is bringing about peace where there is conflict. Peace can only be brought about where conflict exists if transcendence exists. The peacemakers are transcendent people. They are people who have entered into a state of wisdom and refuse to be altered from it, refuse to be moved from it. Their godliness is the core of their being, and their understanding of godliness is what allows them to operate. Their core of understanding of unity is what makes them who they are. Until man knows the difference between right and wrong, until man knows the difference between animal qualities and godly qualities, until man can transcend differences and enter into unity, man is not a man. Man is an animal. And right now, in this world, most men are animals. They have not understood what it is in order to become unified with existence. God's is a power. He is this incredible power that rules all of creation. And he finds a resting spot, a repose within the hearts of man. But in order for him to be able to live within man, man has to create a house for him. And how does man create a house for God within himself? He does it by imbibing God's qualities within himself so that God is amenable to being within that man. Hatred is abhorrent to God. Anger has no meaning to God. Selfishness has no meaning to God. These things are outside of the realm of who and what he is. And as long as those things exist within us, then we are outside of the meaning of what he is. And the only hope for our salvation is to imbibe what he is and to become who he is. There is no other release from this world. You know, it should be self-evident to everyone that this life comes with a death sentence. No one escapes it. No one, no one's body makes it through eternity. But if we believe what the prophets have told us through the word of God, we are not this body. God created us from a ray of himself, and in the miracle of creation, wrapped us within the elements so that we take on the appearance that we take on. But in truth, this that we have been wrapped in is not who we are. But man has taken on this wrapping as if it were who he is. And because of that, we now have race, and we have people who believe that race is a penultimate description of who a man is and defines him, when in truth, it has nothing to do with him. And until we realize that, until man realizes that, man keeps on going about creating situations that are without merit, that are without any reality or truth to them, and holds them up as truth. People go around with signs. My religion is the only religion. My religion is the best religion. If you're going to find a way to God, you have to go this way. God has no religion. My race is the best race. My race is the only race. All other races are less than appreciated by God. He created us special. God has no race. We are so caught up in prejudice in these lifetimes. We are so caught up in needing to make ourselves more that we have lost the truth of making ourselves unified and understanding that the only way to escape this death sentence that comes with our birth is to become godly, to become godlike, to enter into the realm where the material, the elemental, is no longer fundamental to existence, that we have gone beyond the elemental into that which is formless. God is formless. He has no image. He is the essence of his qualities, and those qualities and their essence is available to all mankind. And unless man picks up that essence and brings it into himself and becomes that essence, man is doomed to what is known as hell. Man is doomed to what is known as reincarnation. Man is doomed to repeating the misery of his existence over and over and over again. Joy is only available through joy, and joy is only available through God. God is at the core of what is appropriate. God is at the core of what is holy. God is at the core of what is pure. God is at the core of transcendence. God has transcended everything. Nothing can influence him because he is whole and entire within himself. We are lacking, so we look for things to fill the emptiness within us. And we look in the world to fill that emptiness. And in truth, we cannot be made whole by the things of the world. We can only be made whole by God because God is the only thing that is whole. God is the only thing that is one. God is the only thing without separations, the only thing without differences. And unless we travel that path, unless we have that intention, every other path and every other intention is doomed to failure. And we need to realize it. We need to realize that there's one way out, and that is God, and that is becoming God's qualities. And that must be our prayer, that these qualities that are the essence of truth, the essence of unity, become our essence. And we ask God to make this available to us so that we may become truth, so that we may know reality. And he has sent us people in this world who have reached that state. And they are here as our examples to show us what they can be like. And if you find one of these people, you will find that the wealth of the world is not what's important to them. The fame of the world is not what's important to them. The power of the world is not what's important to them. God alone is what's important to them. His truth, his unity, his uniqueness is what's important to them because they know that in truth, that is all that exists. So they don't spend time with that which isn't real. They focus on reality. And may our lives become focused on reality so that we can transcend all the lies of this world, all of the lies that we've lived up till now, and they dissipate from us, disappear from us, so that we become pure and attached to that one reality. May it be so for each and every one of us. Ameen, ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullah wa barakatuh.